We're going to transition now to Cybersafety 101 and welcome our next speaker, Sonja Grey. Since 2016, she has been the Executive Director for Exploited Children's Health Organization, or ECHO. Her role as an Executive Director is very active in the community by partnering with nonprofit organizations, local schools, and youth-serving organizations, all while serving in different leadership roles. Ms. Grey brings over 15 years of experience leading and working with both nonprofit organizations and for-profit businesses. She's had multiple leadership roles in numerous organizations throughout the community, effectively raising awareness and support for various causes. So we thank you for being here today and for sharing your expertise, particularly when it comes to protecting our children online.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Doc, and I am equally proud to be here and representing ECHO. And you just heard from one of my great community partners, Elizabeth, and we work, quite frequently together. Just in the meantime, let me start pulling up my screen and all those good things here, because I can't see you all now. So I just want to make sure that you all can see my screen. So once again, good morning, everyone. My name is Sonja Grey, and I am the Executive Director for ECHO. This particular training is Cybersafety 101, and the description of this training is protecting your children from potentially harmful things on the internet until they learn about the need for safety and security online, which is incredibly important, and particularly because as a society, we increasingly spend more and more time online. Hence, we're online today. So this Cybersafety 101 program is designed to educate adults about the safe and responsible use of information and communication technology with children. The program will also focus on how to keep information safe and secure, setting boundaries, signs of grooming, using good etiquette, Kentucky statutes, and your learning objectives today will be to increase the knowledge of digital safety and creating healthy technology environments, understand the digital dangers of the internet and warning signs, and then how do we implement positive behavioral and preventative skills in the digital world. So let's get started here. So ECHO, we've been around, actually next year will be 40 years. We started in 1983. Many individuals that have lived here during that time will probably remember the story that I'm getting ready to share of how we evolved as an organization, but it was due to a tragic incident that did happen here in Louisville with a 12-year-old girl who went riding her bike over by Bashford Manor Mall. And unfortunately, she never returned home. And her name was Ann Gottlieb. And through the efforts of her family and many concerned adults trying to locate Ann, this is how we evolved as an organization. And as of 2015, they did put a resolution on Ann's death, so she was never found. And as far as a perpetrator, no one was ever really convicted of that crime. But our mission is to reduce the incidence and impact of child abuse by providing education, advocacy, and support services to the families and children of Metro Louisville. And a lot of what that means, and I like to share this, is that there's over about 3,200 nonprofits here just in our local area, 501c3s. And we really have a unique niche. ECHO, what we do is that our first priority is to educate and empower the children around body safety and internet safety. And then we also provide presentations for adults to be able to recognize, react, and report child abuse. So we are one of the only nonprofits in the Louisville area that partners with both public and private schools, and we go into the classroom and we educate and empower those kids. And so within a 6-month time, we have been able to educate over 3,600 children, just learning how to recognize what abuse is, talking about it, helping them to identify safe adults, and most importantly, how to keep themselves safe. So some of our topics of discussion today will be talking to your kids, creating a safe environment, warning signs and digital dangers, chatting online, digital footprinting, cyberbullying, the Kentucky statutes, and also what type of resources are there out there. So you've just heard from Elizabeth, and you'll hear from many of us talking to your kids about the internet. One story that just hit, it was September the 27th of this year, WDRB. You may have seen the news article or either um, in the Courier, but there was just an article that came out and said police said more than 24 boys under the age of 18 in the Louisville area have been targeted by a sex extortion scheme that publicly humiliates them by sharing explicit images of them with their friends and family online. This is so real. And it's amazing for me because as an adult, I did not really truly grow up in the digital era. But if you're thinking about our kids now, this is what they know, this is their environment. And so many times you will hear me, along with other prevention educators, saying we must increase the opportunity to have conversation, to start the dialogue. And when we're talking about cyber safety, when we're talking to the younger children, we want to talk about netiquette. What are the manners? Like, what type of manners do you teach at home? You know, thank you, no ma'am, yes ma'am, no sir, yes sir. We want to create those same types of manners on the internet. We want to be kind on the internet. We do not want to humiliate people on the internet. We do not want to be mean on the internet to each other. Also, with younger kids, we need to talk about what is appropriate and what is inappropriate content that they put on the internet. So once again, we'll talk a little bit about nude pictures. We'll talk about a whole lot of different things that is going to be inappropriate content. But one of the things that I also want to say is that when we are talking to our kids about inappropriate content, we must understand that they also mimic what they see as far as the adult behavior and how we interact on social media as well. Talk to them about pop-up and passwords, not trusting people online. If you are aware, and once again, working with Elizabeth and her organization, but we also work with Catholic Charities to talk about trafficking, not trusting people that you meet online. Our children are so vulnerable and so trustworthy of individuals, but many times they do not know who's behind those screens. And they start developing these relationships over the internet. And then the perpetrator at some point in time is going to make that notion of let's meet. And then it starts into the whole trafficking situation. We all want to talk about never giving out personal information and not clicking and clicking and clicking. So if you have younger kids and older kids or older kids, we want to share everything that we talk about with our younger kids, but also these are the extra things with our older children. Sexting, and we'll define what sexting is, but sexting carries severe penalties for inappropriate exchanges of photos. And still here in the state of Kentucky, that is still considered child pornography. Cyberbullying. We get many, many calls from our community partners with JCPS and wanting us to come in and really deflect what is happening within their schools because there's a lot of cyberbullying. Once again, you see meeting people in person, sharing and liking of inappropriate information, doxing and online grooming, and also entering contests or taking quizzes. The other thing that we're talking about entering contests or taking quizzes. The other thing is, and specifically with our older children, are challenges, social media challenges, TikTok challenges. We have seen, I think it was just last month, I had something that came across my desk where there was a new challenge on TikTok of pouring NyQuil on chicken and you eating that chicken, and that carries severe medical issues for children and for adults. But once again, children think it's fun and it's engaging and let me try, and really don't think about the repercussions of doing those things. So once again, for the older children, I would even talk more about what are those online challenges. When we are in the community, and specifically when we're talking with parents, or individuals that are within the school system, many are like, well, how do I go about having these conversations with our kids? One of the things that you see is like, don't go on wishing smartphones and the internet never had been invented. That just don't even say that. It's not going to create or a great opening for your conversation with a young person, because remember, this is the environment that they were born into. This is what they know. I come from the environment, once again, and I'm going to date myself a little bit, but I remember when I was younger and even watching TV that at a certain point in time, around about midnight, all the news stations went off. You had, the American flag coming up. And that was just a notification that there's nothing else that's going to be on these TV waves. But if you think about it now, the way that we're able to access information, have constant streaming of information, it never shuts off until we shut things off. And so here are just a few questions to really help start conversations. Have you heard about? And these are questions that you can ask once again when you're talking to your children. Have you heard about that NyQuil chicken, challenge? And allow the child to talk to you about what they know from their perspective of the internet. Ask them, what do you think about it? And these are open-end questions, as you also notice. But and then following up and talking about what are the risks behind their answers that they are giving. Does blank ever talk about it? So choose someone that your child trusts and listen to, because once again, that is safe. We are helping to identify who their safe adults were. I used to work for Big Brothers Big Sisters. I was a mentor for over 10 years. And many times children may have a challenge talking to their own parent, but feel a little bit more open if they're talking to their safe adult. And so we want to make sure that we're creating that environment where they feel very comfortable and confident of being able to speak up and speak out about what they are witnessing through our digital platforms. Have you heard, or has anything happened to someone, or how does that make you feel? There was an incident that just happened about 2 months ago with a athletic coach that was coaching young boys through AAU basketball. And unfortunately, I had a cousin that was under that coach. And so having those conversations and he was not affected by this, but it was one of his teammates. And so being able to have that conversation again about how did that make you feel? Because this was all across the internet, Twitter, Snapchat, this was everywhere. And so it's going to have a direct effect on our kids' social, mental well-being. And once again, internalizing this information and making sure that they have an outlet to be able to share what they're feeling. And then, of course, the one thing that I always like to say is allowing the kids to know that that if they ever have a problem, that they can always talk to someone. Always let your child know that they have the ability to talk to a safe adult. And so when we're talking about the internet and we're talking about digital spaces, once again, COVID had a very profound impact on our children, because as you all know, most safe places are schools for our kids. And so for the past 2 years, kids were in isolated situations where, just really did not know what may be occurring in the household. How many kids were really behind the screens and what they were really being exposed to. Studies show that kids that have been abused, it can take them anywhere from 1 to 3 years to disclose this information. And so once again, when we're talking to parents and we're talking about how do you create these safe environments so kids are not going behind closed doors, or understanding when kids slam down their laptops or turn over their phone, that it's information that they just do not want you to see. I'm not going to go over all of these, but just a few to point out to create safe environments. We want to talk to our kids to make sure that they're not providing this information out in the digital world, their real name. And so what I mean by that is, you all know my real name is Sonja Grey, but that is not the real name that I should use in the digital world. I may be S. Gray, or I may just be Grayson, something to that nature where I'm not falsifying who I am. But once again, think about perpetrators. And what I always talk about are what are the nuggets that we're leaving for perpetrators for them to be able to develop a profile about that child so they know how to interact or to groom that child as well. Never providing where their location or their home address or what school they go to, what clubs they belong to. We, even as adults, we love sharing information about what our kids do through school or through their clubs, but not realizing that a lot of times we are putting out very personal information. If your child is cheering for Ballard High School, and then they have the whole Ballard High School emblem, once again, that is called nuggets. If you notice that you are talking to, if your child is talking to individuals through the internet, thinking about what is behind them that once again can create nuggets for a perpetrator to pick up on. Are they able to see pictures behind them of who their friends may be or any other accolades that they may have? We never want to put out, their date of birth or email addresses. And then once again, any types of telephone information. Some of the potential problems of an unhealthy environment, and we heard this a lot specifically during COVID. When it's unhealthy, it really creates a distraction. We also see self-esteem will decrease. There's a level of isolation. Once again, you can understand the direct correlation between domestic violence and child abuse, even through just that isolation piece. The underdeveloped social skills, also neck and joint issues as well. What we have found is that kids are spending up to 8 hours or more behind some type of digital device, and whether that is their laptop, a gaming device, or their phone. But once again, we are noticing that their health is being impacted by that. Also, how physical they are, because once again, when I was growing up, it was go outside and get some exercise. Well, what we are finding now is that we have a lot of kids that are sitting behind a screen and they're not getting that physical exercise that they need for healthy development. Even vitamin D, getting that, going outside and being able to absorb that. So we're also seeing how the internet really impacts children on the health side as well. So some of the things that we really want to incorporate when we're talking to kids about keeping them safe online are, what are the rules for chatting online? And this is part of setting boundaries for children that you work with, for your own children. But these are some really good boundaries. Only use sites that you feel that are safe, in which that means that you have done your own research in seeing, is this a safe site for my child to participate in? I will tell you, many times I bring up talking about YouTube Kids, because, we have YouTube Kids and we think, oh, this has got to be safe. But we have had experience where, once again, think about perpetrators are always trying to find avenues to gain access to our children. So that is going to be a perfect platform for them. When we give our devices to our children and they are able to navigate better than we are, they may go to YouTube Kids and they will put something in the search engine with all intentionality of something being very positive for them. They can click on that image and that video, and unknown to them, it can start off as a very friendly, childlike video, and then somewhere in the that context, it's going to start to change. And at that point in time, it's no longer a safe, friendly video, but now it may be promoting or grooming our children to talk about self-mutilation. It may talk about inappropriate exposure of body parts. And so once again, even those sites that we think, because it has kids attached to it, are appropriate, we still need to make sure that we're monitoring those sites. Never log on to a website, use an account from a social media. Never agree to take conversations somewhere else except accept online challenges. And so we want to make sure that when our kids are operating in this digital platform, that it's also in an open environment where we have the opportunity at any time being able to view or see what they are seeing, or what they may be listening to as well. And at any time that a child feels unsafe by interacting in this digital space, once again, letting them and helping them to identify who their safe adult is and being able to communicate that out to them. So I mentioned in the beginning, specifically with our older children, around sexting. And this is a term that many are familiar with, but some are still catching up to what that definition is. And basically, the overall definition of sexting is sharing nude photos between minors, putting out nude photos on Instagram, Facebook, which a lot of kids do not use Facebook because they say that is the old social media app. But once again, children not understanding that it carries serious altering consequences of sexting. And because most teens are not legally adults, teens who sex images of underage people face serious legal consequences. And who are these victims? So we know that 71% of cases involve only victims under the age of 18. So about a month ago, I had several incidences that came across my desk, and it was children that were going missing. And these were all girls. They were all Hispanic, and they were all under the age of 14. Each one of them had interaction with a perpetrator that was grooming them to either come and have a better type of environment, or we're going to provide you with some gift, new cell phone, want to be up to date, new clothes. And so once again, our kids are easily easily convinced that this is a better environment than where they are. And when perpetrators really target that vulnerable population, it's specific because many times they know that that vulnerable population has been marginalized in some type of way. And so it's an easier target. And not saying that kids that come from prominent families are not targets as well. But we also know that about 12% of the cases involve only adult victims as well. And so who are the perpetrators? Every single prosecuted perpetrator is a male. But please understand, and one of the things that I like to talk about is that there is not a poster of what a perpetrator looks like. I grew up with the knowledge that a perpetrator was a white male with a van passing out candy, or is going to ask you for, to pet a puppy. What we know now is that perpetrators can be male, female, black, white, any other type of ethnic background. A perpetrator, once again, is someone that really strives off of power over someone else. And that can even be an older child over a younger child as well. What we're going to do, and I hope for goodness that you'll be able to hear this video, but this is a video from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. It's about 60 seconds, but it goes a little bit into sextortion. So I'm going to play this, and I'm going to cross my fingers that you all can hear this.
Hey, Zach. It's me. I can't stop thinking about you. I know you've been waiting for this for a while. I wanted to give you something special.
are you? Why are you doing this?
All right. Okay, so you can see from that video, and that is very real. We receive many calls, or we have many disclosures within the classroom that someone is trying to engage with our kids through the digital platform. And as you can see, although the image that the young lady was receiving looked like a young boy that was her age, the perpetrator behind that screen was a lot older. And so sextortion, what that means once again is threats to expose a sexual image in order to make a person do something. And we know that 45% of perpetrators carried out those threats. So many times, once again, the reason why a child may not disclose if they see information or if they are being sextorted is because, for one, they don't want to get anybody in trouble. They sometimes don't know what to do or how to address it. And many times, whatever that act is that the perpetrator is asking, they will carry that out. So signs of a child that may have been exposed to inappropriate content. If you notice that there's confusion behind what they have seen, physical or psychological effects, all of a sudden a young elementary student is bedwetting, or they're sleeping issues, or they're carrying out other types of actions. One of the calls that we're getting the most about right now, and it once again in alignment with what Elizabeth is talking about with domestic violence, or how our kids are healthy relationships are perceived. And so I just got a call about a month ago from a school, from elementary students. A teacher noticed that there's a lot of elementary students, first and second grade, that is coercing their other peers to undress, to expose themselves. They're wanting to urinate on each other. And once again, this is something that they have seen on the internet, something that they may have been exposed to. But once again, these are warning signs that we know that they have been exposed to inappropriate content. Something else that really goes hand in hand is their level of anxiety. How often they get on the internet, if they feel like they must stay connected, if there's a place where they also feel like, if I'm not doing this right now, a sense of nervousness. And so want to make sure that we're looking at their different levels of anxiety when they're also interacting in this digital space. And then what type of topics are they referencing to? Is it age appropriate that they are referencing these topics if they are speaking to someone? If you happen to hear a conversation, referencing age inappropriate topics, once again, is a true sign of any type of warning signs. And so what are some of the signs of grooming or luring on the internet? We know the very first one is a high level of secrecy. They do not want to share this information. They will not talk about this individual. They will immediately click their screen off when you walk past. Type of unexplained new gifts, shoes, cell phones, risky or edgy behavior, distance from friends and family, and then once again, those changes in mood. Just a few statistics for you all to know. As many as 43% of children have spoken to a stranger online. A study that we received from the Darkness to Light Stewards of Children, the 2017 stats, is that there has been a 300% increase of exploitation or interaction with kids via internet. And we also know almost 90% of all sexual approaches to young people are carried out in chat rooms or messaging apps. So these are Snapchats, Twitter. There's a lot of new apps that come out all the time, and they're very, very quick to develop new apps. And so part of what we have to do is try to stay up on what are the hot apps that our kids are utilizing right now. One app that I always talk to adults about that kids are very familiar with is what we call as a calculator app. And that calculator app is an app that is intended to hide the apps that children do not want adults to see. So if I was to look at your phone, it's probably going to look very much like a calculator. It's going to look like an app. But if I was to tap on that app, then it's going to be a lot of hidden information that they do not want us to see. As I mentioned, there's always new apps that are being developed. But as far as with professional adults, we do provide some resources that if you come across an app or if you hear a conversation with the children and you're unfamiliar with that app, there's 2 great resources I'm going to share with you right now. So the first is going to be, it's called commonsensemedia.org. And this is a wonderful resource because you can not only look at apps, but you can also be able to get ratings and feedback about movies or TV shows. The second one is going to be the National Online Safety. This is the one that we utilize the most, and actually I have a 3-inch binder of all the apps that their technical team find and put together in a 1-pager that we are able to reproduce and be able to provide to parents where it's the best tips. These are things that you should talk to your kids about, and these are some of the warning signs about this particular app. So those 2 resources are wonderful resources to have. One of the things that we really talk about with our kids is digital footprints. We always talk about what you do in this digital world, in this internet world, it stays there. A lot of times what kids don't understand is that every keystroke, there is someone behind that screen, behind that platform that can really, once again, see all your travels through this digital space. A lot of times you may hear about algorithms, and think about you as an adult. If you've ever been on Google, and let's say you're going on a trip, and I'm Googling, what are some of, what are cheap airline flights? And you Google that, and you may click on a couple of links, and then all of a sudden what you start to see are pop-ups of different ads that come up. And so once again, what that is that we all have our own digital footprint based on the different spaces that we go into, different spaces that we enter into with the internet. So we always want to be careful about what we share, where we share it, and with whom we share as well. So be yourself, but be your best self. And so I have another video that is coming from the perspective of teens about oversharing and also about digital footprints.
The idea of, posting and having a lot of people see it can definitely be kind of scary. If you're a teenager, you're gonna make bad decisions sometimes.
They can screenshot it, they can do so many things to save that, and they can edit it in ways that you won't want them to.
Whether or not you think it'll go away, it's there. Anything you post online, you're stuck with.
Oversharing to me is putting too much of your personal life in front of a wide audience of people.
Posting something for the sake of showing that you're there and maybe not because you're actually having that great of a time.
Posting about things that people don't necessarily think are significant, but they're just kind of posting to be posting.
What you share and how often you share is going to affect the way that somebody views you. Just because I'm going to post all the time, that doesn't mean that you're going to get all the attention. That doesn't mean that everybody's going to like you.
For example, people have Finstas or spam accounts where they just like post random stuff, and sometimes they get too personal with what they're talking about on there.
Things that are meant to be texted one-to-one, people tend to post online so 50 other people can see their plans for tomorrow or the next weekend. You could be doing something like that could potentially endanger yourself by making your account public and saying too much about where you live or who you are.
When I'm in like a cool location and I want to show everybody where I am, but most of the time I'll just tag where I am on like a Snapchat story so people can know.
So once you put something online, it can be there forever because people might take screenshots, they might record it, they might save it.
I don't think people don't realize that it's gonna be there forever. I think they just don't care. A lot of people have this mentality of like, what I'm doing is very insignificant. Why is anyone gonna care about this?
You should be cautious of what you post. Don't post your pictures and think like, okay, nobody's seeing me, nobody's screenshotting me, nobody doing nothing, because people doing that, you're just not gonna know.
Your Snapchats, despite the fact that they only last, 4 to 8 seconds, they're still there. Your Instagram stories that go away after 24 hours, they're still there.
Anything that is posted, anything that's up, no matter what happens, even if you leave it up for a minute and take it down, it's there as soon as you put it up there.
No one's going to scrutinize everything that you say the same way that you might.
You are not obliged to post every second of your life in order to please what you might seem as the majority of people. So when you feel like you have to post all the time, when you feel like you have to do this in order to get fame and attention, you don't. It's not your job.
That's something you always have to be thinking about. What do you want people to remember you on social media as?
So what does social media know? Social media already knows your name, your email addresses, your previous address, every post or picture that you ever upload, and everyone that's tagged in that post. Because remember, once again, we're talking about digital footprinting. Some of the best parental apps that we've seen, and some are very low cost, are free. Net Nanny, Bark, Web Watcher. So once again, when we're talking to parents, we're talking about what are different ways that you are able to monitor their usage. As I mentioned before, and at the top, what we have been receiving from a lot of schools is about cyberbullying. And cyberbullying is the use of electronic communication to bully a person, typically by sending messages of intimidating or threatening nature. And so with our kids, a lot of times, once again, think about if back in the day, if we're talking about bullying situation, usually it may be one-to-one, probably someone on your in your neighborhood or in your school, which that still happens. But now the world that we live in, you can actually bully somebody through the cyberspace that does not live in your neighborhood, that does not go to your school, but some kind of way there was some type of connection where you all became friends on the platforms that you're utilizing. And so some of the warning signs of cyberbullying, once again, noticeably increases or decreases in the device, a child that hides the screen or the device that they are using, a child starts to avoid social situations, even those that they once enjoyed, and once again, a child that becomes very, very much withdrawn and depressed. We know that about 40% of adults suffered from cyberbullying. 60% of kids 8 through 12 have suffered cyberbullying. And when children are suffering cyberbullying, we know that this plays onto their mental capacity. It also can produce thoughts of suicide. How do I just remove myself from this situation? And so a lot of the work that we do within the classroom is evidence-based, but it also helps to support that social emotional learning, that when they don't feel good, that they do have, once again, someone to talk to. We've also noticed that the exposure to violent content through the internet. and having the opportunity to speak with our kids, because it helps kids to express their feelings. There's a lot of violent video games. And, how does that make you feel? Once again, being able to determine, what is real and what is not real. Sometimes their thought process can get very muddled because of what they're doing on the internet. And once again, not understanding what the consequences are, but also reminding them that real violence is not a joke, that, they may be able to, in someone's life through a video game, and you may be able to have more lives when you start that game over, but in real life it's very different. And then also being able to explain what are the consequences. The other thing that we have also noticed with the internet is a high percentage of kids are also being exposed to pornography. And so once again, I have just a little video, once again, coming from our teens, talking about the first time that they ever really was introduced or exposed to pornography.
How old were you the first time you saw pornography?
5, 10, 15, 14,
12.
That's 10. 6, 14, 13.
When was the last time?
Yesterday, 2 days ago.
Last week.
Yesterday, actually.
6 months ago.
Like a month ago.
How often do you see something pornographic in social media?
I guess like every day I'm on Instagram.
All the time.
Almost every day. Almost every day.
Pretty often. Like once a week.
Once a month. Probably every day.
What's the craziest thing you've ever seen in porn?
Probably a woman sticking the bottom of her heel inside a man's urethra. This man getting by a horse, and he died after the video. Animal sex? Dogs. Midgets.
Nugget porn, which is people with no arms and no legs.
Have your parents ever talked to you about porn?
No.
No.
No. My dad once said don't watch porn, that's about it.
Either you can teach them about sex or online porn will. We've made it easy to keep the conversation going.
So once again, we can see that kids are being exposed to information that sometimes their brain development has not caught up to what they've been exposed to. And so hence they start developing these ideas of what relationships look like. And so if kids have been exposed to any type of pornography, when we're talking to parents, we're like, don't overreact. Have a discussion with them, find out how it happened, how they were exposed to this information, and then make a plan to try to prevent it going forward. As I mentioned, Kentucky is currently a state in which teen sexting is categorized as child pornography crime. And so Kentucky is currently a state in which teen sexting is really considered child pornography. And when we're in the classroom, we really try to educate the kids around that sharing component, making sure they're not sharing inappropriate information or body parts. Convictions result in the teen having to register as a sex offender for the rest of their lives. So even felonies can be issued to teens as young as 12. The other thing that parents are so quite shocked about, which is net lingo or teen text slang, and you can Google some of the information or how they speak, and this comes in specifically with texting, but our kids talk in codes. And so one of the things that we share with adults is that use Urban Dictionary as a resource for you to decode what they are coding in communication with others. And so some of the things that we really bring up with parents is KMH, kill myself. Also GNOC, get naked on camera. RUH, are you horny? So if parents or adults see this type of information, we're saying, hey, we want you to Google this and really understand what they're saying to their peers. As Elizabeth mentioned, and I am too, is that, we know that Kentucky is a mandatory reporting state, and we do have a number that we can report that information. Well, there is also a 1-800 number that you can report if you see anything that occurs through the internet as well. And it's called the Cyber Tip Line, and it is managed through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Excuse me. Excuse me. So once again, if you happen to see any information on your children's devices, or if they happen to communicate with anything to you about someone is trying to solicit them through the internet, please report that, and you can report it to the cyber tip line. Here are some resources. As you have it here, the cyber tip line, which is channeled by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. A lot of great resources through the Kentucky Attorney General's office. NetSmarts is another great avenue where, once again, if you're looking for videos or content to be able to share with children, Face It, the Face It movement, a lot of information there as well around, here are some tips for parents, but also you will be able to notice any other trainings that are provided around child maltreatment. And of course, we are listed as one of the trainers for Cybersafety. And I just want to say, once again, we would not be able to do the wonderful work that we do within our community if it was not for our community partners and our funders. And so we really just appreciate those that really provide that trust to us financially to be able to continue the program and, you know, many, many years throughout. My goal is, I'm hoping that one day ECHO will have the capacity to be able to service every JCPS student, every student that is in private school, so that we can build a safe and resilient community, whether it's in person or whether it's on the digital platform. So thank you again.